Everybody, thank you for listening to Coffee Can't Fix Everything. This is a show where we talk about mental health over a cup of coffee. And I have a fellow coffee lover, maybe more than me.
I've recently got in trouble for the budget that's committed to coffee because I have the espresso machine and I do the thing at home once in a while, but I kind of like going to coffee shops every day.
Yeah, this is kind of your thing. I got Ben McGoogle here. Ben, I know I maybe went overboard. I introduced you to Drew. Shout out to Drew, the Slow Down where we host, about all the things that you do. But me, it is you.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but that leads me to my question for you is like, because I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but with all the things and all the hats that you wear, there has to be some originality in every little piece of thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I admire about that is the strength and the braveness it takes to take on something like that and still bring Ben, like who you are to that piece. And my question is, why do you think, or do you think people are afraid to be original?
I do not think people are afraid to be original, but it depends on the environment that they're expressing the originality. As an example, I know most of us have no problem being original with family and friends. We're joking around,
Right.
We're being ourselves, we're using whatever vocabulary we want,
100%.
We're playing jokes. We're thinking about ideas and talking with them more openly, perhaps. The environment that really shifts it is when you're in public, when you're interacting with strangers, when you're putting yourself on the hook, right? And so this question rhymes with some of the elements around like the privilege of risk. If responsibility is like task number one, then being original would probably be seen as potential problems if I was to shake up this boat too much. And so the comfort of the status quo is real, but it can usually devolve into more of an ego thing where, my ideas aren't original and therefore I'm just going to kind of stick to talking about the weather.
Right. Right. So it's not necessarily someone not wanting to show who they are.
I think everyone wants to feel like they're living their own life, but humans are thirsty to at least feel a sense of belonging. And so sometimes that chameleon like nature of fitting in is the safest way to make a new friend, align with whatever they're interacting with. But the more you ship your own art and have thoughtful conversations with strangers and collide in the wild, I think it can become more normalized and therefore more natural. Even in settings where you know nobody, you can talk through some original ideas and maybe even more so, pulling originality out of others.
Right. I like what you said and you've said it a couple times today even, of just being in the wild, right? Being in the wild or something around wild. I've heard wild a few times.
Yeah.
I would love to know, one, tell me more about what that means. And like two, like for someone like myself, I would like to consider myself someone that can be original in whatever situation that I am in. I take a step back. I know I'm probably not all the time, right? Like I'm sure there are probably moments where I'm out in the wild and I'm looking for a comfort zone to be into and to just sit in the cut. And I might want to be myself in that moment, but you're testing like, I'm in
It takes energy to do that.
There's some lions over there.
Mhm.
I'm out in the wild. There's
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you start then you start getting into yourself. How
Yeah.
do you maneuver? Is this what is this how you've always been?
Mm.
Right? Is this how you've always is it just natural for you to be able to maneuver in the wild and still have a little bit of you and everything?
Yeah. I love this. It reminds me, I was on a college campus recently, and a college student asked me, "What does it mean to stay wild?" And I was like, "This has a different answer within the context of going through college." You know, I think a fun way to like just jump to a quick thought is like saying yes leads to more adventure.
Mm.
And so for whatever stage of life it might be, this is going to mean something a lot different. But to kind of respond to what you were thinking there is like, I think showing up to 1 million cups every Wednesday for 14 years straight, that defines colliding in the
Oh my
wild.
gosh, yeah.
Right? And so you're meeting, of course, homies that you haven't seen in a while, and a chance to catch up is great, but you're also introducing different perspectives
Yeah.
with a lot of people you don't know. And so that like curiosity of getting to know someone's story, or, you know, showing up slightly, not asking like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And then having perhaps even a short but meaningful interaction,
Mm.
doing that in such like a repetitious, like creative practice type of a way, I think has given me something I'm really thankful for. It's not necessarily a comfort in the wild, but an awareness of how to find it, what it can lead to, and how to interact in a professional way. But to what you mentioned, still like enjoying myself and feeling the difference. Even one more quick thought on the like the entertainment that is available in the wild, the therapy that might be available in the wild, or the growth, and showing up with what you're trying to navigate is important, but can also become misguided. I said last thought, but one more. If you're in the wild and everyone's there for therapy, but you're looking for something entertaining or looking for something different, that's where you see people showing up, enjoying it, appreciating it, but maybe not plugging in, making this part of their routine. Versus you run into a community-driven event that, you know, is you feel like you're surrounded by your tribe. It's much easier to sacrifice and continue showing up, which is where you see the dial turn away from transactional networking and more into connection that can lead to not only opportunities in the first degree, but that engaged network adds depth. So you're interacting with that person's second, third degree of their network. And over time, that generosity builds trust and caffeinates whatever you care about.
Yeah, that leads me. I love all of that, and I don't have a whole lot to add to that. That was great, and I will add a little bit of what it reminded me of. I learned, you know, and someone was telling me, you know, in Europe, you know, here in America we say, so what do you do? And people say, well, you know, I work at the bank, or
who are you with? Here's a hack. You.
Yes.
I'm with you.
Yeah, like we ask like very typical.
Or what
questions.
do you do? It's a secret. Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
No. Yeah, but in Europe they'll ask, what are your interests?
Yeah.
This is what someone told me. What are your interests?
Nice.
What are the things? And it's like, oh, that's a whole different way of engaging with somebody, and I feel like that's not a heavy lift to just change how you introduce yourself. You know what I mean? Like still being myself.
Yeah.
Right. But if I'm out and the goal is, say for me, when I go to 1 million cups, even though I'm in a minute, I'll be back at some point.
Yeah.
But you know,
and that's just an example.
Right.
And the consistency of those type of events are important. So you've got your milestone moments, like your events that are coming around every quarter, every year. These things, everyone's there. The monthly events that take longer to nurture, but can create a lot of momentum. And then you have like the glue that occurs over a weekly cadence. And so that one
Yeah.
MC is just an example.
But you said something important though about how somebody is showing up or what they're needing where they're at. And I think like where I would love to get to, I can only speak for myself, is like, man, I would love to be in a space and like if somebody's being timid or like I can tell like, hey, you're trying to be in the mix, you're just trying to camouflage yourself, but you may have something that we all need. Right?
A common example of that are students.
Yeah.
They show up with almost this mindset that they have nothing to offer.
Man.
Perhaps they lack a little life experience, but in contrast, they're also in tune with the frontiers.
Yeah.
And if students show up with that type of curiosity, a lot of times people will like give a community hug simply for the sparkle of showing up.
Yeah.
That initiative is hard to find. And so asking a thoughtful question or, being curious is a way that you can kind of show up without needing to be having the microphone all the time, but still create interactions that are valuable. And now
Right.
the connection can start to emerge. We haven't mentioned the new book, but there is a really interesting riff called the Interested Introductions. And I love like the slight like look at depth on how introverts might interact with fellow introverts or extroverts or all these different like personality types within a wild environment. And being aware of that helps you understand yourself, but also how you would like to interact so that there is like more sense of connection here versus me talking at you and kind of listening as a facade so I can get out something else.
Yeah.
I opened up while you reflect on that, like stand out. On the first book in the community chapter, it talks about this. Like, do not ask, what do you do anymore? Or how is the weather? Like we're smarter than that.
We're so fast that.
So like just I'm looking at what mindset inspires your best work? What's a recent project you enjoyed working on? Are there any roadblocks you're working through? What would you do if money wasn't a factor? Where did you travel to last? That can kind of devolve into maybe too personal sometimes fast. Kind of like, how's the family? That's a meaningful question and it means everything to that person. But if it's in a community event versus maybe what we're enjoying right here, there's also an art in coming in and exiting those interactions thoughtfully. So you're not being short with somebody.
Right.
But especially if you're hosting an event, you have other tasks that are, let alone important. The opportunity to add more collisions into that moment. And so you're not being shallow as much as you are jumping deeper, faster, enjoying this, but also leaving meat on the bone so that you can meet up after the event at a different thing or over a coffee or wherever it might be. And that's where the depth can really go beyond like some of those quick jolts.
Right. In a different environment, different feel that you can get to something a little different. I wanna jump to Brew Within.
I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. I'm like enjoying the summit.
Brew Within. You know what? I learned a little bit about you just through the process of Brew Within. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong.
You don't need to say that. I will if you do.
Actually, Corey, you're here and you're way far over there.
Right.
No, that's good. But what I learned from this process, so Brewed from Within, second book, there's a lot of, I already know there's a lot of value in that book. Oh my gosh. Like just the people you have that have participated in this book. What I learned from you from this process, from the first email is, Ben walks the talk. What I mean by that is, one MC, you say community. Here, you say community. Well, I see this email list of all these people in your community that were more than happy to be a part of this. Like when you asked me, I didn't have to think about it.
You called it an instant yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, he's really about that life. I was like, okay, cool.
Mm.
So that was the one thing.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I really appreciated about it was, or what I felt about you was
Yeah.
you, it feels so simple, but it is so kind of like, this is very creative.
I'll correct you on that because it's not simple. Just kidding. Yeah, yeah.
I know it's not simple.
I'm just playing.
But like,
it's just all consuming.
it's all,
yeah.
Yes.
I describe it as not rocket science, but a million little knobs to turn.
Yeah.
You know, nothing's
That's a great way to put
overly
it.
difficult in the art of writing. It's a time, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, in this case, a lot of creative design aspects that go into it. I don't love the shouting nature that it requires to create awareness. We can talk a little bit about that because it's something that I think is important to articulate. But in that case, Elizabeth, one of your fellow contributing authors, there's 21 contributing authors. So, and these aren't blokes off the street. Like, these are people I highly respect from around the globe.
I'm thinking these names. I'm like, yo.
It's not bad when you start an email, Brad Feld and Jonathan Ortmans with the Global Entrepreneurship Network, like all these folks that I really highly respect. And so I'm thankful for the trust that has been built, going back to our earlier points, on the sacrifice of consistency.
Yeah.
And continuously showing up, delivering on that promise, accelerating a lot of those people in a variety of ways. And when you do that, we all know this works. The reciprocity, I got that word right the first try, is that people are not only willing, but like thirsty to help. And when the opportunity arises, I think we know who we want to be a part of it. And there's reasons why. There's going to be an instant yes, but there's also going to be expanded perspective and value in their participation. And so Elizabeth called it a masterclass in collaboration. And I really appreciated that comment.
That's the word I was about to use, but in a different way, in the sense of, I think people miss that piece. What I've learned, and this is what I've learned, when you say or think community, as a community person or whatever, collaboration has to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And like what I mean by that is, just from our interactions, like I would bring a version. Then there was like a Google thing, and then and you would call me like, yo, I think this could be this, or what do you think about this? Or I really like this. And it was like, oh, there was still autonomy. Like, I knew this was my thing, but there was this collaboration that was a part of that made it more meaningful. Like, oh, he just isn't like, hey, Corey, write something so I can have some pages to fill. You know what I mean?
Right. Or here, I wrote this. Can you sign off on it?
Can you sign off on it?
Both of those are not what we wanted.
Right.
But it was challenging. That's what took the extra time in herding such tigers, was introducing the idea, creating some general direction, but also like keeping it porous. You know, like, yo, Corey, what do you feel called to publish in a timeless book?
Yeah.
Right. And so giving some time and some space for people to marinate on that. But then, to your point, the tactics of going back and forth, let alone then putting it into the sequence of what is 125 riffs, so that it completes like the story.
100%.
Celebrating those contributing authors, making sure everyone is communicated on what's going on. And I think a lot of leaders are curious about writing a book. And so I felt like an opportunity to go behind the scenes a little bit and share what was going on. Perhaps the email was an extra paragraph than it needed to be.
Right.
But I could see that like awareness spawning new original content from this small group of remarkable leaders.
Yeah. And to bring it back to the main point we started with, that's what I appreciate, and that's why I feel it's important for people to understand that being original, there may be some fear there, but if you're able to, and being original in the sense of you as Ben had this idea. Books aren't new ideas, right? Like they've been around for a minute.
Yeah.
But I want to put Ben on this. What I want to put Ben in this book. Oh, this is the creative mind of Ben. Now I'm going to bring in my people to do this. And that's where if there's somebody right now that has a Brew Within in them and they're afraid to bring it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a suggestion that everyone has a book to write.
Yeah.
If we're going to use this as the example, it's when it starts keeping you up at night that this is a strong signal that I teach folks to keep an eye on, because that's where you might have the resiliency to go long term with the sacrifice required.
Right.
Writing a book is something that everyone probably thinks about, gets excited about, but then even after they've spent how long crafting whatever it is, there's still like more, there's always more that needs to be done. And it's not for everyone, but it is a very healthy process.
Yeah.
Even if it's not in a book form. So real quick pit stop, writing helps us understand ourselves.
Man.
I like to read to learn more about the world, but as you add writing into your creative practice, with all the AI productivity, of course, being leveraged whenever it's needed, writing helps us think. And in doing so, you're not only like articulating thought, able to share it verbally, but if you publish this, it's indexing your thoughts. And now when me and someone interact, we talk about whatever it might be. If you write every week for 3 years, turns out you've got a library to pull on. And when we depart, that's an example of sequencing the relationship building, because I can drop a link related to whatever we talked about.
Yeah.
So you're adding depth to kind of your like digitized consciousness that can be pulled on, and it almost lets you be less, like have less of an agenda when you're talking to someone, because you don't have to deliver it all in one set.
Yeah. It's just little pieces at a time that maybe easier to consume, easier to do.
It might be a photo here, it might be a video there, it might be a writing there. This is what social media is, until it got, deformed by what we think of when we hear that term.
Right. Yeah.
This is how you can have social interactions with the support of creative acts, and it makes it more entertaining, let alone interesting, and resonates in various levels. And so I think the creative act is something that we all have, that spirit, but going back to like almost the privilege of risk, as that creative spirit gets that like layer applied, that's where we see more and more people with that entrepreneurial spirit. That's kind of a segue that maybe we can pull back from, but I get passionate about this stuff. And it's because I've experienced for myself, but I've also been around the level of wild. I've supported different types of founders, students, entrepreneurs, community builders in so many rural, medium, and urban, large city type environments. I'm thankful for the like awareness that I've been introduced to. And I would almost regret it if I wasn't able to synthesize and, at least for some people, be able to deliver my understanding.
We've talked a lot about the fun of the creative side of being original, of like the originality in the creativity, and how that's exciting, and how that pushes out new ideas, and how it helped formulate the book. We haven't talked a lot about, and you've alluded to it, the back end of it, kind of maybe the stress of wrangling all the people, putting it together, still doing your part for the book.
Yeah, it's funny because I promote the 20+ contributing authors so heavily that people might forget that I wrote 105 of the other riffs. So
talk about that for me.
Yeah, the commitment is it's like an ongoing part of your creative practice. It's like not needing to be in a certain environment to be inspired. You're just doing the work to feel inspired. And over time, it just becomes like your art, right? I'm quick to take a photo for no reason, knowing that it might sequence into something later for no reason that I understand now. So having some trust in yourself, having some milestones to feel the sensations of success feels important. So a fun hack on like podcasting is a series, right? It can feel heavy when it's like, oh, this forever quest. I don't know if it's going to work or if I even want to do this.
Right.
There are ways that we can experiment with some of these creative activities so that we don't get overindulged and like dilute ourselves to mediocrity. But there's also a lot of like personal, I don't know if strife is the right word, but like ongoing tension. And I don't know how many you want to talk about, but I'll give you one that's been really interesting as you turn from whisper mode. First, you're silent mode. You're in the workshop. You're building something that takes so much effort, so much time, so much attention, so much heart. Then you need to, unfortunately, like customers for a startup, you kind of have to have them.
Right.
When it comes to hopefully making an impact with something that you care so much about, you have to start whispering to create awareness. So, oh, the cover art's coming soon, and like this sequence of marketing. And then you get into this shout mode that just feels so self-serving. You know, like, okay, so wait, I have to post on LinkedIn every day? No one wants to hear from me every day, but I gotta hope that it hits the algorithms, you know? And so in the shout stages of, I would suggest a lot of different types of launches, whether it's a company or a book, it can really like weigh on that sensation of trying to gather attention. You start to worry that you know, you're being careless with the network that you really care about. You start to question some of even your closest connections when you've made it very abundantly clear that this thing means everything to me. This is an opportunity for you to throw 200 cents onto Amazon and play the game with us. Or the $20, like, hey, keep building, stay original. This is an extension to keep you creative. When you don't see those expected numbers all kind of flurry, as you would always hope, you start to wonder if the connections are true. But here's what I'm starting to like, at least hope, is that the scarcity of attention is so real that even your best friend 100% knows you have a book coming and it means a lot to you and plans to have it on her shelf and, you know, is down to click the one thing on Amazon, whatever it is. But because we're so distracted with all the other things in life, it requires like, almost like, yo, what's going on? Nice to see you again. Oh my gosh, I didn't get the book yet. And then it all happened. There's no question as to whether they wanted to. But is that actually, I don't know. So I'm really, that's kind of a trust thing in the art. And at the same time, not letting the metrics of whatever it might, book sales or pre-orders or whatever, not letting that like blind you to the beauty of what is being created, whether or not the transaction count comes to a point that you feel is appropriate.
I think what makes it hard is that we can be doing something because we know it's impactful, we know it's valuable, and we don't want the transaction piece to be louder than what like we know in our heart. Like in my heart, I know I'm doing this because one, I know that I put a lot of work into this.
You know what's behind it is it's like that iceberg meme that everyone is seeing.
And I don't want the feel of now I have to ask you to get it to feel like, oh, you just want my money. Like it's not about the money though.
Right.
You know, like so there's that balance of like, hey, I didn't write this book, so I was like, man, I'm gonna write this book. Oh, I'm gonna make so much money from this.
You will be disappointed if this is your
Yes.
motivation.
Yeah. And that's not the motivation. So I think knowing that that's not the motivation, like you're like, oh man, like how do I, going back to your feeling of like, oh, now I gotta post every day just so somebody a month from now can see what I posted yesterday, kind of thing to hit the,
And it wears on you.
and it wears on
It wears on you. Unfortunately, in a loud like world, it's part of
the game.
the like prerequisites.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I don't like that part of it. So that's one like example of tension behind the scenes that I think any artist feels when it starts to feel more transactional versus what it was always, you know, and it's art that connects with those you seek to serve. Here's a fun one, and I have no idea how time is or how
we're good. We're good, man.
the
We're
extended
good.
EP. Oh, in that thought, I lost where I was headed with that. Let's continue.
Yeah, no, you know where I was gonna go after that was when you're going through this process and you're at the coffee shop, wherever the coffee shop that you go, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what goes to your mind? Are you like, what do people need right now? Or is it like, hey, this is where I'm at? You know, what is that process like going from book 1 to book 2? And do you feel like book 2 is first, answer that first question first.
Yeah. Book 1 is all about like a community-driven entrepreneurial experience. In this case, it came from that wild level of collisions and seeing how so many different people were building things they care about. And in doing so, you recognize the similarities that are actually more abundant than maybe we'd like to admit. And so you're often going to need some ideation. You're often, going to need some research, some marketing, like some of the things involved with building a business are like a required framework.
Right.
And so leaning into my understanding of that was the kind of thesis behind the first book. If for no other reason to synthesize it for my little one, here's everything I understand about entrepreneurship in the connected era. The second one was unknowingly an extension of that quest, because as you start to release little bits of writing through like an ongoing newsletter and start, curating content, that content really gave a good runway to release a new writing every week. A lot of it in the early days came from the book, but that runs out. And so you start to like write more and more. And I wrote every week for 3 years. And this wasn't private journaling. This was shipping the art to that audience I seek to serve. And so that created a lot of appreciation in that act of writing and understanding ourselves. But also like it got to a point where I looked back at this beautiful library and realized I didn't want that to get numb or lost in an online blog. And so there's might be another book concept or two that I had, but I looked back at that timeless content and really appreciated what had emerged beyond the first book and decided to revisit that, maybe selfishly hoping it would be a jump start to getting another book or another purpose for that content I really cared about. But it was no means copy and paste. So much more of it was like having a strong framework. In fact, behind the scenes, one day, this is no tech, I printed out the titles of every riff that I had in the online library, organized them into some form of a flow, because that was going to be the trick. Can you make all these individual posts tell a to B type story?
Right.
They all rhyme though, because I wrote all of them. This is 100% human. It's on the back of the, on the copyright page. And when I realized, okay, I'm going to need 4 parts, because there's entrepreneurship, of course, that builds on
Right.
the first book, but then there's this like community building, there's this leadership
Yeah.
element that sprinkles into education, entrepreneurship, leading a team, and the culture that goes along with that. But I'm a technologist, so there's a lot of like nerdery that we can also explore
Right.
without it becoming intimidating, and also not trying to be timely. Like, let's talk about this platform or that. That was one of the more challenging sections as it came together.
Right.
How do you write about something that moves so quickly without being overly abstract? And then the last one, I think this is a very, very heartfelt piece in this book that everyone's gonna probably jump to, maybe even reading that part first. That's the part you're in, is the life and happiness section.
Yeah.
Because business often connects us. That's the conduit that in the wild, right? That's why we're showing up. We have something that we care about that's commercialized. But so often when you continue to show up and the connections truly emerge, it becomes about life and happiness and philosophy and spirituality and all the things that I think you build a business for, but it might not be the business that you're truly connecting with.
I was going to ask you why that was in this book, because I see when you first talked about the book, I was like, oh, Ben, entrepreneurship. That's where I'm like, oh, this is what this book. I'm like, oh, I'm talking about mental health stuff. In this book. Where did that come from? I'm like, where did that? I was curious of where that came from.
Well, revisiting the library, I realized that in your weekly writings, it's not always about the tactic that generates customer discovery or whatever. So there was a call to present that. And I'll admit, I'm a little bit more of a private person when it comes to my personal, like family life. But there was ways that you could pull your personal, like the timely nature of something and have it be important, but not like too personal where the reader feels like this is a what do you call it? A memoir.
Right.
That's the opposite of what, in fact, the word I is purposefully avoided, like the first book, so that our readers can experience it for themselves, appreciate the perspective, but then translate it for what they need to, kind of execute around. And so I'm really thankful for that piece, Corey. It's one of my very favorite elements. I mean, you have, astronomy brewed into that section. There's a lot of like Santa is real is one, like gimmies, the hole-in-one that's written by a contributing author that hit a hole-in-one on my 40th birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
Vanessa McNeil's another contributing. She writes about waiting rooms in life. So there's a lot of like philosophy and psychology that I think it's important because it's a part of this genre, an entrepreneurial lifestyle. It's not entrepreneurship. This is a creative way of being. And so tactics are important, but there's so much more to it. And the life and happiness section just finishes us in style.
You need that piece.
It's not honest if it doesn't include it, if you're broadening it to the entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Which, in a way, I don't know if this is on purpose, but it makes more sense that maybe it's the last section. You know what I mean? Because like, you're in this, you're like, oh, entrepreneurship.
You just came off the nerdery of a technology section that's not intimidating, but it blows your mind. Because I'm a translator. I am a hybrid that grew up before the internet, but not old and afraid of change and embracing it. And as a computer science degree and like technologist vibe, I embrace those things while appreciating the human touch. And so I'm really excited to hear what people think about the technology. I'm kind of passionate about the whole thing.
It's like you're in this fast car and it's like, okay, now it's time to stop and breathe.
Right.
Take a beat.
Man, and there's plenty of their like mindfulness activities. There's physical exercise. I know that your audience appreciates the both physical and mental health aspects of however we're choosing to spend time. one fun one is 1% better. So I've felt the value of breaking a sweat. I think when we get busy, it's easy to think that we're active. And there's a difference when you break the sweat. And it's funny because I have my Peloton instructor, Bradley Rose from England, has one of the very few quotes in the book.
Really?
And so the 3 people that have quotes in the book is Bradley Rose for those Peloton fans. It's such a like funny like unknown, you know. But then Seth Godin gave me the green light to share a couple of really related quotes. And then I got one from Naval Ravikant. I love the like philosophical flavor that he's able to articulate big thoughts in small amount of words.
So I think you might appreciate this, but Seth Godin's book, Tribes,
my favorite,
is how I created my city, my health.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I love that.
I read that book and I'm like, oh,
I've given away more copies of Tribes than any other book besides mine. Like Tribes is my favorite book.
It's like, this is how we create community.
Yeah.
And like using some pieces in like a framework, that framework in Tribes. If you can kind of think about it.
Generosity builds trust.
Yes. If you think about that book and think about how we do my city, my health, it's all in there.
I suppose it would make sense that we enjoy these types of jam sessions.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting thing. Seth Godin is my favorite teacher, a hero of mine. Having the blurb on the back of the first book from him.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Jam-packed with hard-earned tips, tactics, and approaches for entrepreneurs of all stripes.
That's so cool.
There's a whole story we won't go into, but interacting with your hero, I'll jump to one tactic and just go straight gratitude, no ask. And interacting with Seth for that first time, there was a slight mention that I had activated my first book, but it was much more so about like, thank you, gratitude.
Man, that's so cool.
And not just like, hey, this is my favorite book, but Tribes is a link to a Twitter thread that has a million different key takeaways. So it's like signals of true fan.
Yeah.
And that led to some neat interactions and having, real skills. It opens things up in the entrepreneurship section. Was kind of the permission was given to reprint that, republish it as it was in the Song of Significance by Seth Godin, which is a manifesto for teams and almost like a update from Linchpin, which was an earlier book that really, I think, focused on entrepreneurship being indispensable. And even like how the education system was built on compliance to deliver factory workers, and factories are not bad. It's just existing systems that people needed to know how to work within. And so The Icarus Deception is one of my favorite books that most people haven't read from Seth Godin. His recent one, This is Strategy, and he has a new one called The Knot. And so in the back of both books, but Brewed from Within is the most updated list, there's a lot of additional reading, additional resources. And even in the opening remarks, I say that this style, this vocabulary, even the format of riffs versus chapters is inspired by Seth Godin. So I speak Seth Godin plus Brad Feld. Like, this is how I translate thought.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That could be a whole nother part 2 and 3 of a podcast. We'll do that at a different day.
Yeah.
But Ben, this was so cool, man, to be able to chop it up with you, to talk about this book. Again, I appreciate the thinking of me to be able to give my 2 cents to this. I'll make sure to have that link in the description of this episode so people can go.
Let's find the page that Corey lives on.
What page am I living? Where am I picking up?
You're in the 4th section. I'm just flipping through the back. 119, Winding Wise, Wayfinders, which, fun fact, used to be called Number One Dad, but it needed to apply for moms as well. Love Letters, the value of almost individuality through trust in relationships. Something that's not talked about as much in like the startup community scene is the value of our co-founders in life
Man.
and the appetite that that can provide for the
Oh, that's
risk
interesting.
to be original, to be creative, to go down these entrepreneurial paths. Feng shui, front and center, if anyone's been to a music concert and has felt the euphoria of how music decorates time, this is a fun one because it like shows how you can get to the front into the center, and even using your superpowers of creative content creation to skip the line, to be behind the DJ, to get the media pass. So that's front and center. Santa is real. Bloop, they're 1%. Here it is. Creation versus consumption. This is maybe the first time Corey's felt the book specifically on this page. So I'll let you tell people.
My name's in the joint.
Well, of course, man. Every contributing author is really celebrated in those extra shots, which are these little jolts throughout the manuscript.
I'm just going to give you this. Before the music, before the crowd, there's one voice asking, can you hear me? Woo! That's, oh my God.
You got to give away the page number, no more. But
so, oh my gosh.
It's a little light on purpose.
Okay, 284. 284.
284, 285, and 286.
And 286.
And at the end of every riff, the level of digital depth, I think, will pleasantly surprise folks as they're able to scan a QR code and hit the mirrored riff online, which of course has some links, some additional storytelling.
Yes, that is so cool. That is awesome.
Thanks for being a part of such an important quest.
Yeah, man, Ben, this is great. Before you get going, the one thing I have all my guests do is look in the camera. And if there's one thing, there's somebody listening or watching right now, and if there's one thing you can tell them, or get some piece of advice you would give them, what would that be? Look in that mirror, take your time. Look in the camera, take your time.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I'll connect it to kind of the opening prompt of why are people afraid to be original? By encouraging you to make a ruckus, to be original, to feel like a sense of belonging through your unique perspective, and to ship the art. For if that originality isn't seen, isn't felt, isn't heard, isn't read, it doesn't land with those you seek to serve. So quit being selfish. Ship the art, make a ruckus, be wrong, welcome that type of collision, and the more you do it, that normalization creates a naturalization that allows you to continue finding creative ways of connecting others, accelerating others, continuing to feel what is the blessing of building into something we truly care about.
Boom. I appreciate that. Ooh. Ben, thank you so much. Man, everybody, thank you for listening to Coffee Can't Fix Everything. Like I say after every show, I am not a therapist. I don't play one on TV. There will be links in the episode to mental health resources if you choose to go there. Again, coffee can't fix everything, but we're going to have a conversation over coffee and break that stigma one coffee at a time. How about you next time?